A skeleton crew brought in the Broomis from Sparrow, docking at the lower ports. It was still minimally outfitted. Getting rigged out and manned were its primary goals while docked. The Infinigan mechanics were already at work installing weaponry and filling ammo bays. Callie walked through the hallways of Twain with Sam. So far we have brought in 24 derelict ships. We cataloged the salvage tech as you requested. The preservers found the remains of 14 previously unencountered species and are conducting behavioral gene mapping currently. Callie looked over her notes on her holographic display. The scrap metal was bought up by Kawaru Guild. That sale alone covered the operational costs. We calculate the sale of the tech will give you triple profit when all accounted. Sam nodded at that. I have profit already. This is about the history and science. Did you find anything interesting? Callie looked at her notes. Most of the ships were found to have been destroyed by the rift and ejected here in the hole. 3 were self-detonated, and there were Gallic remains on those. They killed themselves rather than be taken. That is our educated guess as well, Callie said. The two turned at a junction. Sam swatted at some circle flies. Anything else interesting? Callie nodded. Well, I found lots interesting. I don't know your standards. Sam smiled at her. My standards coincide with yours. Go on, share. Callie perked up. We found a metal. We don't know what it is yet, but one of the ships was made primarily out of it. We kept that ship and are testing it. It's bendy and rigid at the same time. It's a metallic non-Newtonian solid, very interesting. And oh my God, one of the alien species. It was desiccated, mind you, but it was shaped and looked like a flamingo. Well, a flamingo with 10 arms that ended in 2-fingered graspers. But still, I was like a flamingo. The Scribbler Knights jumped when I shouted. It was funny. They almost shot the corpse. Sam chuckled. The species you found, do you think they are all the builders of the ships? Callie brought up a display of 14 different creatures. 8 appear to have been on ships not built for them. We have orbit scanning through the remaining files we gathered, looking for points of origin. These 6 here, however, they appear to fit the ships they were on. Sam stopped walking and looked at her display. The 3 that were attacked by Gallic? She honed the display to 3 potential uplifted. These species here, we do not know who built their ships, but they definitely didn't fit them. The halls were too large and the controls didn't fit their appendages well. One chair on one of the ships could seat 10 of the piloting species. Good notations, I like this. You're finding clues. Sam started walking again. Send me all of this. Keep me in the message chain, I want to know all findings. Callie kept pace beside him. Yes, sir, definitely. I wanted to thank you. These expeditions have been incredible. Sam laughed. You're welcome. She put up her hand. No, seriously. Every time we step on a ship, I get to document something new to humans. It's freaking mind-blowing. The amount of novelty I encounter in one cycle. Discoveries. Hell, we found one species that operated on a previously unknown sugar cycle. It had to have had a super high metabolism. The food stores on that ship, well, they were long since bad. But they had a cargo bay full of food just for their crew. Seriously, this is amazing. The two approached the bank. Sam looked at her. You're welcome. Send me the files. Get your game face on. We're about to get you a few years of funding. Sam walked Callie into the meeting room. Numerous Clouder senators were seated around the table. Sam sat at the head of the table with Callie sitting to his right at the last open seat. Hello, everyone. Sam looked around the table. I'm shocked how many of you were interested in this project. Thank you for attending. Sam looked at Perry. I'm happy you made it in Perry. How is the Reformation project going? Perry, standing in the corner, occupying 3 bodies, responded with the bodies speaking in unison. They are not ready. I do not know if they will be. They are wilder than me and my progeny. I will keep trying to get through to them. They do like gambling, though. Greyfweck interrupted from the speakers built into her tube. We are not here to discuss prisoners of war. We are here to talk about the findings of the archaeology mission. Sam looked at Callie and then at the table. You have all looked over the mission debriefing? Sam looked around the table, noting the nonverbal cues of affirmation. Good. I wanted to talk some about the success we have had and our proposed next venture. Sam stood up and had Orbit pull up a hologram of a graph. Sam pointed at it. You can all see plainly the profit this one debris field mission has accumulated. The metal salvage alone paid for the mission. The knowledge and tech recovered is still being researched, with the profits coming from those ventures predicted at 1,000% mission cost. Callie snorted. Sam pointed at Tweeda, the Kawaru senator. The metal recovered? What quality was it? Tweeda fidgeted. Well, ship grade, of course, all pure and refined already. And are your people turning a profit off of it yet? Tweeda clacked his beak. Yes, of course. It is ship grade. We are making parts, selling them. We are making profit. Tweeda looked around the room. Why wouldn't we be making a profit? Sam looked at the hologram of the Gree of Twain. Do you and the Kawaru wish to further help the venture? The Gree blinked. Of course. We are appreciative of the metal purchases, but I am more intrigued by the engine renderings Callie and her crew have provided. We are curious about the idea of a library that Orbit mentioned to me. These rendering will be available to everyone? Sam nodded. Everyone in the Clouder, yes. Sam looked around the room and then at the purple hologram of Orbit. Yes, a library. We could have a digital library and have it linked to the market app. Anyone in the Clouder can access public domain knowledge. Orbit, can you start that up? Orbit nodded. Easily, sir. Sam thought for a moment. Put a Library of Alexandria rule in. One has to share some knowledge in order to gain access, Orbit asked. Yes, I like that idea. It would promote sharing. Rendering app now, sir. Sam looked around the room. Sorry about that sidebar. Back on topic. Sam pulled up a display of a planet. We have found a world we would like to investigate. The Fuimo senator shivered and turned a dark blue. That is a bad world, it said. Several senators looked around agreeing. Grack stood up and pointed at the hologram. That is a known death world. What do you want from there? Sam looked at it and spun it around to the energy signature at the equator. There is evidence of a civilization on it. There is a massive fusion energy reading here. We want to know what it is doing, and who built it. Grack hit the table. You want to send this woman to her death, gain nothing? You have profited. Continue with the debris fields here in the hole. Why go to a world full of monsters? Sam nodded. I believe her and her team can complete the mission. Sam pulled up an image of the Brumus. I have contracted with my brother Dam and hired out the Brumus to aid in the mission. We are assembling a crew and training teams as we speak. The Preserver spoke up. I am putting my savings toward this mission. The knowledge living on that planet is invaluable. My compatriots would sell their arms for access to the data collected from that world. I wish to buy those arms. Heckletooth spoke up. The Infinigan are in agreement. We have numerous new weapon designs we wish to test. This planet would be the perfect testing platform. We feel our armament is more than sufficient to hold off any hostile predators. She looked around the table. The Infinigan will invest. A hagfish stepped away from the room's corner. Many of my brothers and sisters have given their lives to that world. It is a holy death. We would like to accompany the Kali to her doom. Such a holy rite would bring glory to our sect. Sam looked at them. You think it is suicide? The hagfish extended a row of teeth as it spoke. Yes, most certainly. The leader of the scribblers spoke up. I have 200 knights ready to serve, Sam. They are older, and welcome whatever findings the mission brings. Callie stood up. I think we can do it. She touched her wrist and adjusted the planetary hologram. The fusion reactor is powering a fluctuating magnetic field. I can understand the lack of knowledge of what is down there. Transmissions would be hampered. She pulled up a waveform next to the planet. But the interference fluctuates on a multi-random generator. We have already deduced the pattern and can modulate transmissions to circumvent it. Callie looked at Orbit, and they both winked at each other. Callie continued. Our mission, unlike those on record, will be able to transmit live data back to the Brumus. We will have real-time orbital support. Many of the senators shifted around in their seats at that new information. The Fuimos changed color to a light purple. I will change my stance. I will send some of my cohorts to aid on the ship. Sam smiled. Thank you, Fuimos. We could use your eyes. Perry spoke up, its bodies in unison. Spitzlittle has a patent pending on an armor-based Hummer emitter. If we could implement this on this mission, I think I have 2 of the reformed who would be willing to assist on the ground. The room went quiet. Sam stared at the Gallic senator. You said that they weren't ready to be around the public. This is not the public. This is a planet full of hostile life forms. I think my people would be an asset on this mission. If your peoples had adequate protection, I think it would be a good exercise in alleviating trust issues on both sides. Sam looked around the room and then at Heckletooth. You know of this patent? Heckletooth bobbed her ears. Yes. I review all my mother's work. It will work. She tilted her head. It would be a rush to get enough for the entire crew. It may put the departure back a cycle week. Sam took in a breath, looked at Orbit, and then at Callie. Perry is right. We need to show a bit of trust, but we also need to be prepared. We aren't on any timeline, so I think we can spare a week. Heckletooth bobbed her ears. Mother will be happy. The profit from this patent will aid her endeavors. Sam gave a slight shrug. Well, I think we can mark the mission as a go. He looked around the room. Everyone, start getting ready. Sam looked at Callie. Compile a supplies list. I want you to have everything you think you will need. Callie nodded and started noting on her arm display. Sam looked around the room a final time. Meeting adjourned. Feel free to access the library when it goes live. Callie stood at the entrance of the massive cargo bay of the Brumus, noting on her arm display. She took note of every crate going past her, like a space-age Noah counting his pairs. Callie watched a contingent of Scribbler Knights walk on board. Then several large flats of machinery covered in tarps, pushed by Reborn and Finnegan. Her grin spread across her face as she watched the human soldiers step onto the ramp, guns draped over their shoulders. One of them waved at her and shouted, For the hunt! She laughed and shouted back, Glad to have you on board. Stow up. Follow your arms to your quarters. Yes, ma'am. She continued smiling as she marked more items off her checklist. Olivia kissed Sam deeply, both standing on the gantry leading to the Brumus. Olivia let go first, still staring in Sam's eyes. I'm going to miss you. Sam hugged her even stronger. I'm going to miss you. He leaned into her. I'm kind of jealous. Worried mostly, though. Be safe. She hugged him back. They need a captain. He started easing his grip. I know. I came up with the mission. Sam let go. Good luck. Olivia kissed him again on the cheek and started toward the dock door. The Brumus eased away from Twain, with Olivia at the helm. Curator, Callie, and a crew mixed of most of the Clouder species staffed the consoles around the room. A large blue holodisplay illuminated the center of the room, showing the shrinking space station as they departed the sector. Curator looked over at Olivia. We are clear of the station, ready to enter rift space. Olivia nodded. A bubble of space and light enveloped the ship, plunging it into the brightness of the rift. Curator nodded back. Rift entered. It will take 4 laps for us to reach the desired location to exit. Olivia got on the ship-wide comm channel. Hello, crew. This is your captain speaking. We have entered Rift. I'm showing a scheduled time of Rift departure in 47 minutes. Everyone remain in your designated protected area or suits. I will keep you informed, but I expect to have an uneventful trip. Olivia watched the ship's course, Curator doing the math and piloting the ship. It looped around in an expanding spiral out from the center of the rift hole, the plotted dotted line leading to the edge of the outer rift sheath. There they will punch out into the rim systems. Minute by minute, the ship got closer to the location. Curator looked over at her. Nearing exit point. Olivia got back on the comm. All hands prepare for rift departure in 1 minute. She broadcast the countdown through the Brumus. It neared the 1 mark, and she gripped her chair's handrests. The ship shuddered as they exited out a forced rift bubble. A cascade of light erupted into the empty vacuum, and the Brumus was free. Curator looked over the readouts. We are clear. Next leg takes us 4 hours of jump travel until we are in the clear to make a virgin rift hole. Olivia nodded. Crew, we will have 4 hours of jump before next rift. Feel free to exit safe spaces and suits. Olivia left the ship comms and looked over at Curator. Keep us on course. Curator nodded confirmation to Olivia while she sent a data file over to Callie's console. Callie opened it up. It was the spatial scan of the rift journey they just undertook. The sensors picked up hundreds of potential collision risks and had to maneuver to dodge over 60 of them in that short trip. Curator and Erebus had upgraded those very sensors to get more accurate scans inside the rift, and Callie could tell. She made out several shapes, some obvious ships. She found one with potentially recognizable characteristics, most likely human. She looked at Curator and mouthed, "Callistode?" Curator nodded while still focused on the ship's flight path. The rest of the trip went as planned. The Brumos exited the last rift path after only a few minutes, dropping out at the edge of a binary star system. Callie started scanning, as did Curator. Olivia looked over the map as it populated celestial bodies. Callie walked over to the main holodisplay in the center and pointed at a planet. Curator pulled up an ellipse around the two stars. "Here is the green zone of the system." She looked where Callie had indicated. "Yes, that is the planet in question." Olivia looked over the map. "Any ship sign?" Curator shook her head. "Just our scout. They are still in orbit." Olivia looked at the planet, green, blue, with wisps of orange, and 3 moons. "Take us in. Let the scout ship know we are here, and allow them docking rights. I want them fed and rested." The crew in the helm room all gave a "yes, ma'am." 3 Fuimos guided the scout ship, while Crackletooth piloted it. They had completed their 3-week-long survey run, and were nearing the ship designated to retrieve them. The Brumos grew larger in the displays as they neared. Crackletooth looked over the ship. It was shaped similar to the Posar, but thicker and with more crew housing on the sides. The Fuimos beside him radioed the comms. "Scout 24 on approach." It turned several of its feathery eye stalks toward the others in the cab. "We have been cleared to enter." Crackletooth watched as the maw of the Brumus opened, welcoming them in. He piloted the craft slowly through the protective field of the hangar. A fellow in Finnegan was guiding him down the lane using human landing signals. He followed the instructions and hovered over the designated spot. He lowered the landing struts and descended. The ship bounced in place, issuing a small hiss from the landing assisters. Crackletooth got out of his chair and walked through the cab and into the small crew quarters. He gathered his rucksack and went toward the rear door. The Fuimos were busy cleaning the cab and gathering their personal items. The door opened, and Crackletooth stepped out onto the ramp and jumped a bit. He was startled by the presence of a grazer, 3 humans and the Curator. One of the humans, a female with a thick HUD goggle set on, approached him with her hand out. "Hello, Crackletooth. I am Callie Smith, lead director of the mission here on planet A24. Crackletooth took her hand in 2 of his. "Nice to meet you. I was told that we would have food first before debriefing." She nodded. "Of course. I'm here to lead the way to the mess hall." She motioned the team to give him space. "Follow me. I'll walk you there personally." She looked at the others. "Help the Fuimos. Curator get the logs and prepare a presentation." Curator watched as the 2 walked down the hall to go get food. She turned and walked into the scout craft. 2 Fuimos ducked into the crew quarter alcoves to allow her to pass on her way to the cab. She sat in Crackletooth's vacated chair and opened up her arms. They split down the center, going from 2 to 4 operating arms. Cords extended out from hidden ports, winding and finding their way into the ship's data slots. Plugged in, she began her download. Callie let the crew of the scout ship eat and went up to the helm. She walked across the room to the central blue holo display. She stood beside Olivia. "That the planet?" Olivia had her hand to her lips and gave a curt nod, still staring at the display. "Curator is still sifting through data, but we have basic mapping." She pointed to a dark spot on the equator. "The source of the energy readings is shrouded by a constant storm. They took spectrographs and looked through it." She brought up a red overlay of the structure hidden underneath the spiral of clouds. "It is built into a mountain." She spun the display and zoomed in. "See here? The storm feeds a lake around the mountain, probably a purposeful design." Callie looked at the notes made by Curator. What about this spire? It looks like it's hooked over the river coming off here. What is that? Olivia shook her head. Don't know. It's weird, though. Callie changed over to a biosign readout. The planet lit up. Holy shit. The planet is crawling. Olivia looked it over. From ocean to mountains, even the deserts are full of life. That's incredible. She looked at Callie. You ever seen a world this full before? She shook her head. If the other planets with similar readings are like this, I'm surprised the Gallic haven't devoured them yet. This is a buffet. Olivia walked around the display. Curator just threw up a highlight here. Callie walked around and looked at the spot indicated. Oh wow, those are campfires. There are peoples down there. Olivia shook her head. This planet is weird, I'll give it that. She zoomed in. A stone encampment was highlighted around the fire. Look, are those walls? Callie tapped her googles to change focus. Looks like maybe a settlement. She looked at Olivia. You think they are friendly? No idea. No risks, though. We play it safe. I agree to that. Callie spun the planet around again, eyeing the spire under the storm. I'll get everyone to go over this data, and we will get a game plan together. Callie situated herself in her flight seat on the shuttle. Cookie and Grape Juice, the young colorful preservers, sat beside her. Crackletooth, Curator, and a Fuimos were seated across from her. 7 Scribbler Knights stood, with their war rigs mag-gripped to the shuttle frame. A human was piloting the shuttle down with Fuimos guiding him. Callie stared at the display in her goggles. Curator. Curator leaned across to reply. Yes? The pods land safely? Yes. They are already boring into the mountainside for materials and constructing a framework for the labs. Any readouts from the surface? Curator leaned back in her seat. They are pretty basic. They are good at determining base elements and ripping things apart into those, but complex life and biosigns are not their forte. The pilot spoke over the comms. Shuttle nearing landing point. Everyone prepare for landing. The ship thrummed as the grav engines lowered their pulse. The shuttle descended onto the clear spot on the mountainside the box spiders had cleaned for them. A sigh of relief was heard from Callie as the shuttle landed. Curator unlatched and walked through the cab. I'm going to run preliminary tests with the SFP. She looked over at the preservers. I have your equipment. I'll get air samples. You should have readouts momentarily. She continued down into the shuttle's cargo hold where a cluster of SFP were waiting. They all entered the airlock, and after a moment of pressure adjustment, they stepped out onto the life-rich alien world. If you're already one of our Patreon supporters, you can now access the latest chapter of 99.9% of the universe 24 hours before its YouTube release. If you're interested in early access, follow the link in the pinned comment below. Your subscription also supports the author who receives a share, enabling them to keep writing the story you love. Thank you for your support.